Hello everyone and welcome to the game you've all been waiting for. It is round 4 and it's the first game we're covering of the round. Daniil Dubov versus Praggnanandhaa. It's from the FIDE World Cup 2025 and the game is exactly what you were expecting. From a game that Praggnanandhaa and Daniil play, I will make sort of a spoiler here. It's the martial attack. Yes, I couldn't wait to tell you that because anything they play, I'm pretty sure would be thrilled. But having the marshal on the board between these two gentlemen, I think the you think that they couldn't get any better, but it can. And before we check it out, I would just like to congratulate the winners of this month, Lichess Lotus Chess Arena. Joseph 2013 International Master defeated everyone. He finished ahead of two Grandmasters, even though he joined late and won first place. It was a really fun event. This time only Rafael joined me. Next time, hopefully, all of us will be together and, well, join us for the next big December arena. I will keep you guys informed, but now let's check out the game. Praggnanandhaa with white opens with pawn to e4. And yes, I've already spilled the beans. E5, knight f3, knight to c6. We have bishop to b5 and pawn to a6. We have bishop to a4, knight to f6, castles, and bishop to e7. So all pretty standard. The closed Ruy Lopez. We have rook to e1. Pawn to b5 and bishop to b3. Castle's kingside, and this is where everyone is waiting. What will happen? Will it be a d3? Will it be some sort of an anti-martial with a4, h3? No, it's pawn to c3. Pragg wants to fight. He invites Dubov. Are you up for it? Do you go for the martial or do you go for some knight a5 business, and just chicken out? Of course, Daniil goes for the martial attack. We have pawn to d5. And let's see what happens. We have e captures, knight captures. So this is the standard way to treat the marshal. And now there are a couple of ways you could do it. In the olden days, knight captures on e5. And even nowadays, but people are trying out new stuff every day. Was the capture simply a rook captures, defend the knight with pawn to c6, and after the rook retreats, then you go bishop d6, put pressure, and then after pawn to d4, you bring the queen into the game, g3, queen to h3, with a lot of possible ideas for both white and black, and this has been played thousands and thousands of times. Sometimes after knight captures on d5, they don't go for knight captures on e5. Sometimes you'll see d3 or pawn to d4, but very rarely will you see h3 here. So Pragg wants to get Daniil out of book right from the start, and there really aren't any top-level games with pawn to h3 meeting the marshal this way. So, okay, Daniil not very impressed, plays bishop to b3, although he does spend some 3 minutes on this idea. Pawn to a4. And here there are a couple of games where, or maybe even one game where b4 was played. Daniil goes knight to b6, and it is now already, as of move 11, that we have a completely new game. So let's see what happens here. And as you can see, a knight b6, well, let me just go one move back, is the first time where Daniil actually spent some time. He spent some 10 minutes on knight to b6. Pragg replies with pawn to a5, burning some 15 minutes, so both of them are safe to assume out of book. Knight to d7, and now pawn to d3. Controlling that e4 square. King to h8, Daniil unpins from this diagonal, and now Pragg strikes in the center with pawn to d4. And this is quite a challenge. If you wanted to play some sort of a timid game, you go bishop d5, fight for the center, challenge the knight, go b3, bishop to b2, pawn to c4, play something like this. But no, Pragg wants to fight. He's inviting Dubov to execute pawn to e4. Or maybe he even overlooked it, because pawn to e4 is actually a really, really good move. And the problem is, well, capturing it is out of the question, because knight captures on a5, and you don't want to trade an e-pawn for an a-pawn. Very rarely do you want to do this. And it even gets worse. Rook e1, bishop captures on f3. You cannot capture with the queen because the bishop is hanging on b3. So you'd have to ruin your king side, captures, and you get this position where maybe you can save it, but I mean, why would you do this? So after pawn to e4, Pragg goes knight to h2, and now pawn to f5. All of a sudden, Dubov managed to get that e4 pawn push in, and also cemented with pawn to f5. And Pragg goes knight to d2, nicely developing. And the problem for Pragg here is that Daniil is very close to winning. The problem for Daniil here is that it would take a soul of silicon to see this. I will show it because you guys love discussing engine lines. Daniil played bishop to d6, which is a very natural move, very human move. You're preparing to bring the queen into the game. Maybe you can get the rook into the game as well. But there was this disgustingly beautiful queen to e8. And at first glance, it doesn't really do all that much. But I'm only going to play the absolute best moves for white recommended by the engine, as this is white's main idea of a defense. F3, you have to break that center. It seems like it's even easier with the queen on e8. But the problem is, now you have bishop h4. And now, okay, once the rook moves, the rook e2, you're going to play knight e7. Still doesn't make all that much sense, but you will see what's lurking in the shadows. F captures on e4, F captures on e4, knight captures, bishop captures, rook captures on e4, and now bishop to f2 check. Again, doesn't seem like it's doing all that much. King to h1, of course, you're not going to go to the f file in front of the rook, but now you'll see the idea. Knight f5. I mean, just wow. You sacrifice the queen for a knight g3 checkmate. And of course, the white will not capture the queen. Of course, Pragg would see this, but there's really no better move. Rook g3. Okay, you can sort of try and give up the rook, but still, knight f6 challenges the rook. The rook doesn't really have any squares, and that's pretty much it. So, knight to e8, probably queen to e8. Impossible to defend as a human, and these were only top engine moves I've played as white. But yeah, bishop to d6 by Daniil, and now Pragg goes pawn to f3, which is now very much possible, and Daniil has to decide whether he goes pawn to e3 or he does something else. He played knight f6. Pawn to e3 is, again, very, very interesting because it kind of forces rook captures on e3. There's really nothing better other than allowing pawn to f4, which is terrible for white. So you would have to capture, and then after knight e7, yeah, it's really hard to develop for white. That knight on d2 is just disgusting. The bishop pair is fully operational. What do you play? Knight d to f1, then some knight f6 action, rook back to e1, open up the bishop, knight comes to g6. It's a really, really nice position for black. But okay, Daniil played knight to f6, and now Pragg goes bishop to c2. And we're just gonna discuss f captures on e4. Since it's a forcing line, I feel like you guys are always interested what happens if he captures. Well, if he captures, then you can just capture back. Knight captures, f captures, and now white would have this very nice queen g4 move, and everything is perfectly fine. So yeah, it's definitely possible. For example, queen f6, threatening some queen f2. You can go bishop e3, let's say knight e7, again, opening up the bishop, trying to get the knight to g6. That's pretty much black's idea in every line. And after rook to f1, you're going to go knight f5, and after, let's say, bishop g5. It's a pretty tricky position, but most likely is some sort of a repetition here with bishop f4, queen f6, and we repeat moves. I doubt that we would see that, but yeah, it's not very ambitious. F captures on e4. So Pragg went bishop to c2, and now bishop to g3. Again, Pragg sort of flirting with danger here. Rook to e2 and pawn to e3. Again, offering the pawn, but again, it cannot be captured. If you capture it, knight d5 attacks the rook, rook e2, what, knight f4 attacks the rook, and if rook e3, queen g5 with some bishop captures, queen captures, checkmate, or if you defend, the knight captures on h3. So it's lost for white, however you play it. So after e3, knight d to f1 immediately by Pragg, bishop captures on h2, knight captures, and now pawn to f4. So Dubov got that e5 in, then he got e4 in, f5 in, then he got e3, f4. It's like, you know, he just doesn't care. He's like the honey badger. And okay, pawn to f4 and queen to d3. Here, paralyzing the knight on f6. If it moves, it's going to be checkmate on h7. So Daniil has to take care of that as well. But his plan was to bring the knight to g6 all along, so it doesn't really do all that much. Knight e7, we have b3, now preparing to activate the dark square bishop as well. Knight to g6 and bishop to a3. Excellently activating the bishop with tempo. Rook to f7 and pawn to c4. So, okay, this is, you know, surely unpleasant, but Pragg is making his way forward, and he does have the bishop pair. We have b captures on c4, b captures, and now again, Daniil has a tempo move that he can really use to harass that black king and white king and white's entire position. But Pragg probably he was also afraid that he might be too low on time, and he didn't want to invest too much time in calculating it, but he played bishop to c8 pretty much instantly. The tricky move was knight to h5, and Daniil played it, only he sort of prepared it with bishop to c8, but it's different the way that he played it. Because now, if you try to get that e5 square, knight g4, you're going to get knight g3, attack the rook, rook to e1, and now bishop to c8. It is much different. Knight to e5, rook to f6, and yeah, not all that much white can look forward to here. If you capture on g6, rook captures, this looks amazing for black. But in the game, bishop to c8 was played right away, and now Pragg gets the knight to g4 in one move, knight h5, similar but not quite the same, and now knight to e5. The problem for Pragg is that he didn't realize why bishop to c8 is not a good move for Daniil. It's just not easy to see it. He does attack the rook. We have rook to f6, and now Pragg has a unique way of surviving this attack. It's the only move that doesn't lose the game, but again, with 7 minutes on the clock, probably Pragg could do it. I mean, if he actually knew there was something in the position, but if he doesn't, not easy. So if you haven't seen the game, what do you play here as white? It's the only move that doesn't lose the game. Try to solve it. Believe it or not, it's bishop to e7. And at first glance, what does it do? Well, it gets the queen to e7. That's, you have to play that. Otherwise, you're just lost. So you have to play it. And now queen e4. And look at this. Now the queen is nicely aligned with the queen. Knight captures on g6 check, threatens to win the black queen. And you can do just whatever because the rook on a8 is hanging as well. And now after queen to d8 or whatever, you're just going to play queen captures on a8. And that's it. Knight captures on e5, d captures on e5. You attack the rook on f6, rook f8. Okay, the game continues, but it's very tricky. But this is the way to save the game. However, after rook f6, Pragg played rook to d1, and now it's Daniil who's winning, and he starts playing top moves. Knight to g3, okay, that's the first move that you think of. Rook to e1 and bishop to f5, attacking the queen and the bishop. Queen to c3, bishop captures on c2, queen captures, and now queen to e8. Okay, how do you reply to this as Pragg? He goes bishop back to b2. He adds more support to that e5 knight, and now rook to d8. Again, knight h4 was the way to go. You should avoid this trade and just be extremely annoying because it's very, very hard for white to think of a plan here. To give you an example, if you play some normal move like d5, you want to play c5, d6, create a passed pawn, open up the dark square bishop, all of a sudden rook f5 threatens to win the knight, and when the knight moves, you can even play h5 and the knight is lost. So it's very difficult to navigate this as white. But okay, rook to d8 by Daniil, and now we have bishop to c3. I guess a safety move, some move that doesn't really ruin your position, but doesn't really help it in many ways. But Pragg is now below 1 minute on the clock, and 6 more moves for time control to be reached. Daniil plays pawn to h5, as he should, takes away the g4 square from the white knight, and now, of course, Pragg trades. We have knight captures, rook captures, nicely aligns the rook with the king, and pawn to d5 opens up the bishop's diagonal, and you will not believe what happens next. Queen to f7, rook to d4, beautiful move by Pragg, preventing the knight from coming to f5 as he's threatening rook captures on f4, but also he's threatening rook captures on f4 even without this knight to f5 move, because if captures, then the rook on g6 is undefended. And again, Daniil is presented with an opportunity. How much of an opportunity it is with 3 minutes on the clock, it's hard to say, but you can pause the video. I can never stop you, but I doubt anyone is playing this move. I mean, if you like a challenge, you can try it. But yeah, as Magnus Carlsen said when Ding Liren won the World Chess Championship match, King h7. Okay, he didn't say King h7, but he said pinning, self-pinning for immortality. And here you would have to pin, the rook would be defended, and now you don't have to worry about the rook, and there's no rook captures on f4 threat. And without the rook captures on f4 threat existing, white has nothing. There's really nothing you can do, and the black can just slowly but surely improve the position. Queen f6, queen g5, and that's already a winning position for black. But yeah, after rook d4, rook to g5 was played by Daniil. He didn't see it, and now Pragg has rook to b1. and the rook is now extremely annoying and extremely powerful. Now knight to f5, while it can be played, it doesn't really do all that much. Rook captures on f4, and there's nothing there. So here, rook to e8 by Daniil, preparing to push e2, maybe e1 in some lines, and Pragg has to go back with rook to e1, but he misses it. And here we reach perhaps, we've had some crazy moments in the game so far, but perhaps the most incredible moment in the game. Pragg plays queen to d3, and he's now dead lost. But finding this one, I mean, you have to try it. Otherwise, you're not going to be a part of the journey. Feel free to pause the video and win the game for Daniil while I give you a couple of seconds. If you found this one, you are a better human being than, probably most people. But chances are you haven't. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is knight to f5. The very move white prevented by playing rook to d4 now becomes possible, as the queen on d3 will be undefended. And the idea here is that what do you play? If you go rook captures on f4, then look at this. Rook captures on g2 check. King captures queen to g6 with check, and now whatever you play, if king h1, knight g3 check, picks up the queen on d3, and if you try to avoid the check, doesn't really matter if you go to f1, it's the exact same thing, you cannot go to f2. If you go to h2, then queen g3 check, and white's entire position just falls apart. King h1, queen h3 check, king g1, queen g3 check, king h1, queen f4 captures the rook. Next, the rook goes into the game, the knight can easily go into the game, the pawn, or you don't even have to move the rook from the e file, just e2. I mean, completely winning. White is getting checkmated in a few moves. But Daniil doesn't spot it, as he's now also very low on time. He plays queen to f5. Imagine the horror he must have felt when he, analyzed the game afterwards, or it probably not even analyzed. Probably he was just, he finished the game. He was maybe going to grab a glass of water, or maybe even a beer. I don't know. And someone tells him, instead of queen f5, there was knight f5, and I mean, he's just, your entire world comes crashing down. But yeah, queen f5 was played. Pragg accepted the queen trade. I mean, why wouldn't he? He has 40 seconds on the clock. Rook captures, and rook to b2, controlling e2. Even though you can push it, that would really be over pushing it. Probably h4 here. The game continues. You can play it, but I think both of them were now very much disgusted with this game already, and they were happy to call it a day. And even though, okay, now time trouble is over, as they will get more time. This is move 41, and if you don't, I mean, you could, instead of h4, try pawn to e2, but that bishop is always there to stop it. You don't really have anything. And if pawn to h4, king f2, now black has nothing. You're just gonna double up rooks here, c5, d6, and now it's white pushing for the win. So although you are, perfectly fine, you could easily throw this. And after such a game where you missed so many chances, maybe Daniil doesn't know where he missed it. I'm sure he feels that he missed it, and losing a game after that would be even worse. So yeah, incredible game. Hard to say if the result is fair, because it was only Daniil who was better and winning at times. But yeah, I mean, coming back 3 times from a lost position, that deserves an applause in itself. So yeah, big congratulations to both of them. It takes 2 to create an incredible game, and even though I know you guys don't like draws, sometimes a draw like this is much better than a game where someone wins, by pushing a pawn. At least that's what I feel. So yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Very happy with the first game we're showing from round 4. Doesn't disappoint. Martial attack by Pragg and Daniil. Very much looking forward to what Daniil does with white. Whether he goes for his Catalan, or will it be, a3 or something, we'll see. But yeah, really hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Deepak Gangadaran, Udo Brandt, Leo Teruna Loomis, Edis Fair, and David Gasparian for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions, but mostly covering the FIDE World Cup 2025 until it finishes. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.